We ready?
We're ready.
Good evening, everyone. It is 5:30 p.m. on Wednesday, August 4th, 2021, and this regular meeting of the Sandpoint City Council is now called to order in Council Chambers, which is at 1123 West Lake Street at City Hall in Sandpoint, Idaho. For the record, I am Mayor Shelby Ronstadt, presiding remotely. Also present are Council members Shannon Sherman, Deb Rule, Joel Espiro, John Darling, and Andy Grote. Councilwoman Kate McAllister is absent this evening. We'll now recite the Pledge of Allegiance. If everyone will please stand. And Mr. Darling, Councilman Darling, if you would please lead us in the Pledge of Allegiance.
Well, I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America, and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
And I apologize, Councilwoman Sherman, I should have had you lead that as the senior council member. My apologies.
No worries.
Next, I have an announcement I would like to read. You bear with me just one moment. I would like to recognize Goldie, who is, Caitlin Smith. I apologize. I would like to recognize Goldie, who is lives here in Sandpoint, and she's the second girl in a decade to earn the highest award of the Gold Award for being a Girl Scout who has, and I wanted to say that only 6% of Girl Scouts ever earn this award. This is the highest award that Girl Scouts offer. It typically is 5 to 7 earn the award, but in the course of a year, but through the pandemic, it has shrunk to 3. And Goldie was one of the 3 that earned that award in what amounted to be a really difficult year for many. She realized the challenges of mental health and belonging during the COVID years, so she made a human rights club open for all to provide a safe and welcoming place for everyone. It went from 1 member to over 17 in short order. She made the world a better place by giving her peers a place of belonging, a welcome antidote in a COVID world. So thank you, Goldie, for your service. We really appreciate you and your contribution. Is Goldie in the audience there today? Perhaps she could stand and be recognized. And if could everyone give her a round of applause, please? Okay, thank you, Goldie. And Brian Newberry of the Girl Scouts would like to say a few words, and I'd like to recognize him. If he would step forward to the podium, please, sir.
Thank you, Mayor. I just very quickly, thank you, Mayor. Thank you, council members, for allowing us to honor one of our Gold Girl Scouts. Caitlin Smith was a Gold Girl Scout 2 years ago, and this is our second one here, Goldie. But I will tell you, there's very few girls who earn the highest award, only 6% in the nation that do so. But during a pandemic year, it's much less. But I think in this year of judgment, where so much has gone wrong, having a Gold Girl Scout who came out and wanted to create a club in her school that makes a difference for everybody, a place of belonging. Who hasn't wanted more belonging out there? I really appreciate Sandpoint for recognizing her tonight. Goldie, you will always be a Gold Girl Scout the rest of your life, and you are a girl of courage, confidence, and character who makes the world a better place. And this council recognizes that, and never, never forget that. To each and every one of you, we want to leave you some cookies. We actually were the second best council in America for cookie sales. So Sandpoint likes Thin Mints and Samoas, and we deeply appreciate that. So budget sounds like a night to break out the cookies. And so we wish you the best out there. But Mayor, I'm also going to leave a gold coin for you. Public service leadership is hard. We in Girl Scouts recognize that we need public service that make America a better place. God bless you all. Thank you, Sandpoint.
Thank you, Mr. Newberry. We really appreciate that. And thank you for reaching out to me and alerting me to Goldie's success and achievement. And we really appreciate it. Are there any announcements from council? Any announcements from staff? Okay, hearing none, we'll now proceed with the public forum portion of the meeting, which allows the public to address council and myself regarding items listed on the consent calendar or on any topic not listed on the
Mr. Mayor,
agenda.
but we cannot hear you. Oh, it's our fault. Hold on one second. Sorry about that. Give me 1 second. I think you're back now.
Okay,
If you want to start back up with council announcements.
sure. And I just, I wanted to make sure that Mr. Newberry heard my appreciation for reaching out to me and for alerting us as to Goldie's achievement. So thank you, Mr. Newberry. And then I wanted to invite any announcements from council. Any from staff?
Yes, Mr. Mayor, we do have a staff announcement on the Pine Street project. So I will hand it over to our IDS group.
Thank you, Jennifer. Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Good evening, council members. I actually have 2 updates for you this evening. I'll begin with the Pine Street project. As you're aware, and as we have discussed with the council previously, we went out to bid as a result of receiving grant funds for a sidewalk project along the north side of Pine Street between Division and Boyer. That project was funded via grant dollars, and we have completed the design, went out to bid most recently, and unfortunately did not receive any bids for that project. We anticipate going out to bid here later this fall and having that project kick off in the spring again. We also did reach out to multiple contractors, about 6 of them that typically bid this type of work in our area. And really it's just the high increase right now in construction projects, supplies and materials. So they did not foresee any issues with completing this project in the spring. And as far as our grant dollars go, we actually have through 2023 to spend them. So we're still well within our threshold there. My second update for you is very brief, but I at least wanted to give the council as well as the public an update. As a result of our multimodal transportation planning effort that was recently completed, one of the results of the road safety audit that was associated with that project along Division was a recommendation that we follow industry standard and engineering practices to actually lower speed limits within school zones beyond what we currently do. So throughout most of Sandpoint, our residential streets and in front of most of our schools is posted to 25 miles an hour. During school times, we ask that motorists slow down to 20 miles per hour. The recommendation was that we need to be lowering it by 10 miles per hour. So that would result in a 15-mile-an-hour speed zone through the school zones. So staff is proceeding with doing that not only along Division, but also throughout the entire town. So before school, you will be seeing not only new 15-mile-an-hour signs going up in those locations, but you'll also see words written on the street that says school zone. So if you're not paying attention to the sign, hopefully you're also paying attention to the roadway itself. So look for that in the coming weeks. Our crews have already started. Thank you.
Great, thank you. Anything else from staff? Okay, Madam Clerk, I just want to make you aware the sound is pretty weak on this end, and I've got my volume up all the way. So if there is anything that you can do on that end, I'd appreciate that. We will now proceed with the public forum portion of the meeting, which allows the public the opportunity to address council and myself regarding items listed on the consent calendar or on any topic not listed on the agenda. This is not the time to speak on specific items listed on the agenda. If you'd like to speak on such an item, please wait until we announce that item during the meeting. To accommodate both those who wish to speak on general items during the public forum, as well as those who wish to speak on specific business items on our agenda, a total of 20 minutes will be dedicated to the public forum at the beginning of the meeting. If you'd like to speak and did not have an opportunity to do so, we'll give everyone an opportunity to speak by reopening the public forum at the end of our regular agenda. Before we proceed with public forum, I will take just a moment to recite the rules and procedure for public comment during Sandpoint City Council meetings, both during public forum and during other opportunities for public comment during the meeting. Please note, if you're attending by Zoom, you'll need a working microphone in order to participate, and you'll need to use the raise your hand option if you'd like to be called upon to speak. When your name is called, you will see a prompt on your screen to unmute. You will need to press or click the unmute button in order to be heard. For those participating in person, if you wish to speak, you'll need to complete a sign-up form and hand it to the city clerk. The forms are available on the table by the front door. In the interest of time, please do not repeat prior comments made by others, but simply state your support for those comments. Comments shall not be personally derogatory, nor shall they be personally directed at any individual, organization, or business. Public comment opportunities during meetings are for comments only. Do not direct any questions to the mayor or council or to staff, and do not approach the dais, please. If you have any materials for council, please hand them to the clerk. Each speaker will be allowed 3 minutes and will be counted down using our stoplight timer if that's possible. I'm not sure if staff can accommodate that or not. The green light will indicate 1 minute remaining. The yellow light indicates 30 seconds left. And when the light turns red, your time has expired. Is there anyone who would like to speak during the public forum portion of the meeting?
No, Mr. Mayor.
Okay, that concludes the public forum portion of tonight's meeting. Next on the agenda is the consent calendar. For the record, the total amount of bills is $718,488.45 for regular payables. Are there any items council wishes to remove from the consent calendar? Hearing none, I would entertain a motion to approve the consent calendar.
So moved. Second.
It's been moved and seconded. Is there any discussion? This will be a roll call vote.
Councilman Spurrow,
Yes.
Councilman Darling,
Yes.
Councilman Grote,
Yes.
Councilwoman Sherman,
Yes.
Councilwoman Rule.
Yes.
All right, motion passes. With no old business on the agenda this evening, we'll move on to new business. Under new business is a proposed resolution awarding the construction contract for the 2021 Spruce Street Road Maintenance Project. Removing deteriorated asphalt and repaving a section of road between Division Avenue and Hickory Glen. City Engineer Dan Taddock will provide a presentation for us.
Evening. As it relates to both this agenda item and the upcoming larger budget discussion, this felt like a good opportunity to talk a little bit about our street maintenance plan in general. So I'm sure you all recall back in fiscal years 19 and 20, the city contracted with an entity to conduct a pavement assessment. And this consisted of an impressive looking van with radar detection devices to look at an objective, provide an objective analysis of our street surface conditions. That culminated in a report that looked at prioritization and recommended year, recommended treatment, that sort of thing. And that's what we've been relying upon to program our projects. Accordingly, in our current budget, we had $500,000 budgeted towards street maintenance. The agenda item tonight, Spruce Street, consisting of about 1,500 linear feet of Spruce Street from just west of Division in front of Farman School. That was a recommendation of this pavement assessment. An upcoming project that we anticipate asking council to award this next meeting, upcoming the second meeting here in August, is North Boyer Road. This project was not originally in our fiscal year 21 plan. However, we did receive some additional funding from the state of Idaho through the Building Idaho's Future funding source. And this project was scored highly in our pavement assessment in terms of prioritization, but we also hear a lot from the public about this stretch of roadway and the condition and deterioration. It also requires a lot of maintenance from our crews. This seemed like a good opportunity to move it up in the prioritization list. And again, that project we anticipate bringing before you next meeting. Another project in this fiscal year, we had a little bit of sloughing on a shoulder on North Boyer Road, north of the fairgrounds. So this is north of Jenny Lane. We were able to make that repair rather quickly But we've also noticed some cracking in the northbound travel lane, which is indicative of a larger slope stability issue. We've kicked off a geotechnical investigation and are pending the results of that and recommendations of that. That will also look at some conceptual design improvements for that stretch of roadway. And we're anticipating that completion by the end of September in terms of the conceptual design and the report. We're also moving towards completing design of 3 additional streets in kind of North Sandpoint area, Jefferson, Hickory, and Ruth. All 3 of these street sections have related utility improvements and also have some complexities with stormwater and curb and gutter, so they require a little more detailed design effort. That design effort is underway, and we anticipate that completion by the end of September as well. And last but not least, we also have several road sealing projects. These again are projects and treatments that are recommended from our pavement maintenance report, pavement assessment, and we're anticipating that completion by end of September this year. Looking ahead to fiscal year 22, we are currently allocating $600,000 toward pavement maintenance. First project on the list is design and construction of First Street. This is in 2 segments. There's a middle segment that has more recently been replaced and repaired, but between Forest and Ella and Jefferson and Division. And then of course the 3 segments that we just mentioned, Jefferson, Hickory, and Ruth, that are under design this year. And we also are projecting additional sealing projects again next year, similar to this year. The sum total of those 3 is roughly $600,000. We're also intending, currently budgeting $600,000 toward the future repairs of North Boyer Road, which we are anticipating coming about from that geotechnical report. So on to tonight's agenda item, Spruce Street. Again, this was a recommendation of our pavement assessment report. 1,500 feet of spruce between Division and Hickory Glen Avenue. It's actually a little short of that, east of Hickory Glen, but basically in front of Farman Stidwell School. The project was bid in accordance with Idaho Code and our city policy. Woods Crushing and Hauling was the low responsive and responsible bidder, and we're recommending award to them in the amount of $177,470. Obviously, completion before school starting is a critical element here, and the contract requires completion by August 30th. First day of school, I believe, is September 7th this year. And we have spoken with the school district, and I believe Woods is intending to get this done the week of the 23rd, so we'll be a little bit ahead of this as well. So with that, happy to answer any questions council may have.
Great, thank you, Mr. Tadek. Does council have any questions? All right, hearing none. Is there anyone from the public that would like to comment on this issue, Madam Clerk?
No, Mr. Mayor.
Okay, hearing none, I would entertain a motion to approve the resolution awarding the construction contract for the 2021 Spruce Street Road Maintenance Project. Is there a motion?
So moved.
Second.
It's been moved and seconded. Is there any discussion? This will be a roll call vote.
Councilman Spurrow,
Yes.
Councilwoman Rule,
I'm sure the kids will have fun skateboarding to school this year. Yes.
Councilman Grote,
Yes.
Councilman Darling,
Yes.
Councilwoman Sherman.
Yes.
All right, motion passes. The next item on the agenda is a presentation from Grants and Performance Management Administrator Linda Heiss on the city's performance metrics. Linda?
Sorry. Share my screen here. All right, so I am here to present to you the new upcoming performance metrics dashboards.
You may or may not know that we have been, over this past few months, implementing a new dashboard concept using GIS. And it allows us to do interactive dashboards in a way where we can really give people a lot of information in a more useful way and a more interactive way, so they can really kind of drill in. We have a lot of priorities in terms of master planning, tracking what our master plan priorities are, and we can now map those, and people can get more information about those in a more concise manner instead of trying to dig around. Accountability and transparency, actually, how are we performing as a city? Benchmarking, there's two national benchmarking groups, the American Waterworks Association and the International Council City Management Association. And both of those have really amazing benchmarking opportunities where we can compare ourselves to like communities. And gathering the data for those has been a bit challenging in the past. The way the GIS works is between the mapping layers with water and sewer data and the ability to integrate with our financial software and our Parks and Rec software and all our different softwares, we're able to, going forward, these dashboards can be real-time updated, which means when these surveys come due, instead of me going to Amanda and begging her for data, or going to Corey and begging him for data, it's going to be there. It's going to automatically be updated, make things a lot easier for everyone, save time. Also an information resource for the public. There's a survey tool where we can actually, and I'll show you a survey. Someone can complete a survey within the GIS platform. The results are real-time updated in the dashboard. So for instance, I'll show you an example of an urban forest dashboard that someone's done. When we do an urban forest survey, those survey results can automatically be uploaded into the dashboard real-time. Oops, I clicked wrong. We've had challenges, which has kind of slowed down a bit, and the typical challenges, getting the IT infrastructure ready to go, and then getting the data, understanding the data, making sure the data is correct. I talk about that every time. Getting the data right is really the key to making all of this work, and that's a challenge. And then of course my own learning curve, which tends to be slower with this. But I do have experience with dashboards from the past, and so it's just another tool to learn. But the potential is amazing, absolutely amazing. Every time I show someone something I'm working on, it's like, oh, well, we can do this and this and this and this. And it's like, yes, we can. It's going to take a little time, but yes, we can. Again, I was talking about the ICMA dashboards. They provide, or not dashboards, benchmarks. They benchmark literally everything to do with city government. And then they give you this report that shows the averages for like communities and how you compare. American Waterworks Association, same thing. In all sorts of different water and wastewater operations, it will give you a score and compare that to others. I'm going to kind of skip through these slides. I'm actually going to go online and show you these. I put them in here just in case we had any technical difficulties. I had them to show you, but I'm hoping to take you online. I did want to show you, oops, I skipped one. How do I go back? Yes. Some master planning dashboards that are being done in other communities, and this is what I'm so excited about. And Jennifer's going to speak a lot to master planning. And we just finished the transportation master plan. We just finished the Parks and Rec master plan. And what we can use this tool for is to actually map these priorities on the map. And then a user can come and click on it and get more information about the project. If we get a grant, we can add that. We can change these real time, which ones are in progress, which ones are completed, what's the funding source. And it's a really amazing tool for the public to be able to go in and say, okay, what are the city's priorities without having to read through a 180-page master plan? And where are we at in accomplishing these goals? Police, this one is amazing, and I'm actually working with the police chief on getting the data to accomplish this one. We can look at crime by day of the week, by hour of the day. We can map the most amazing thing with GIS is actually being able to map it. So if we have pockets of burglary or pockets of different crime types, we can actually see those visually. This is the Parks and Rec master plan I was talking about. In addition to actually tracking our master plan priorities, we can track assets and manage those assets. And we've talked about being able to look at a bathroom and what is the upgrade cycle on it and where are we at in that cycle, and be able to actually see on a map the different assets, the different strategic planning priorities, and then click on them and get more information about them. And finally, urban forest has been the one we've been working on lately, where we can actually map our urban forest and look at the trees and where they are in the right of way. And again, we can have the survey and have the results pop up real time. So it's really amazing what we can do. And now I need to escape. And I need to go online. So I'm just going to show you a few of these dashboards just so you can get an idea of what we're doing. There is essentially, it's called a story, and we'll have tabs and different stories. But I've opened up these dashboards just to make this a little bit more simple, so we're not like, and you'll see the story and the tabs and everything. So this is the water utility dashboard. We're working on one for sewer as well. These will evolve as Amanda says, hey, we'd really like to see this in a dashboard. We can add it in, as long as the underlying data is there in a second. And really this provides us with a visual of how much of our water service is inside the city versus outside of the city. That was something, a visual that we hadn't seen before. We knew it, but now you can see it. And that's the really cool thing about this, is being able to see it. And you can see the different water service areas outlined. You can see where repairs have been made. I'm not used to this mouse pad. My little thing keeps popping down. Building permits, another hot topic, issuing them as fast as we possibly can. And as you can see from this, we've got almost as many building permits were issued through June for new dwelling units as were issued in all of 2020. And you can see it by type. And then when you click on any one of these mapped building permit locations, they're all mapped. And when you click on them, you can actually get detail about them. I wish this thing would quit popping down. Business licenses, the same kind of concept, where we can see business licenses typed by category. So you can see construction is kind of most of them. How many we have by location inside of Sandpoint or outside of the city doing work in the city. And again, all of these are mapped. So you can go and click on any one of the business license locations on the map and get more information about that particular license. And then as you can see here, we have the tabs, which is what I was talking about before. We can actually create stories. So initially, as we're creating these, kind of just putting them into one dashboard where we can start to click around. But for instance, with the utilities, we're actually going to have a utilities story and a utilities dashboard where all of your tabs will be related to utilities. And maybe master planning will be another story. So all of your tabs will be related to master planning. So as we build this out, there's so many different options of how we want to tell the story and how we want these dashboards to look. Where's my mouse? And then finally, there's the survey option that I was talking about. It has a pretty good survey tool in terms of different types of questions, how you ask the questions. Clearly it's laid out so someone can do it on the phone, since that's how most of us do surveys these days. These results are automatically analyzed, put up into a dashboard and however we want them to be displayed. And it's real time, it's done within the system, so we don't need to have an external tool creating a survey, then taking the results and copying them in somewhere else. It's all integrated together. And so that's what I have for you today. And are there any questions?
Great, thank you, Linda. I appreciate that. Council, any questions for Linda?
Mr. Mayor, I had a couple.
Yeah.
Looks fascinating and intriguing, and I'm a visual learner, so I agree, not having to thumb through 180 pages of something to see what you want and be able to hone in on it. So are we going to also potentially have like a comprehensive plan data set where that is then overlaid into the different things? Is that?
We can certainly do that, yes.
I just didn't know if that was already on the list of things to get done. And then did you make reference to like our transportation plan that we're
Yes.
always referencing relative to the comprehensive and the planning pieces, so we can
I put-
visually look at all of those and overlay them and then see how that works? Okay, that would be a great tool for
That is
me as a
on our
council member to, sometimes it's, when you're reading documents, it's harder to pull all that over, but if you can overlay different layers to see what's going on, that will, as I said, a visual learner will help me a lot. So
Definitely.
hopefully
Yes.
that gets done sooner rather than later, but I know you can only move so fast.
It is high on my list.
Ongoing.
I'll say that it's high
Okay.
on my list.
Okay, thank you very much. It looks like this is going to be a great tool for the residents and the council members and anybody else who needs some direction.
Great. Any other questions or comments, Council? Okay. Madam Clerk, is there anyone from the public that would like to comment on this issue?
No, Mr. Mayor.
Okay. Moving on. The final item on the agenda this evening is a workshop between City Council and staff on the fiscal year 2022 city budget. City Administrator Jennifer Stapleton will get us started.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Not sure which one of us that is. I'm going to screen. All right, Melissa, so far so good. Good evening, Mayor and council members. What we will be covering tonight is our 2022, fiscal year 2022 budget workshop. For the council, as a reminder to the council and also for members of the public, we have an online electronic budget book that you can access right off of our website. And so you can, it's electronic. You can click on the table of contents and get to all of the different pages. You can drill down on budget amounts in that budget workbook. And we're still working through on updating it with some narrative that will tie to, move me a little closer, budget workshop this evening. So based on discussion tonight, we will be adding additional elements to the budget workshop, but at this point, all of our numbers are in there and everyone can access all components of our budget and our appendices. So with that, we will kick us off with a brief summary to start. Hopefully I'm switching over. Hopefully it pulls up. Wasn't liking to do this earlier. Probably don't need to get up there. I'm going to hand it off first to Sarah to, again, get us grounded in the summary of our various different funds and the total amount of the budget as a proposed to council.
Good evening. I wanted to first go over the increase in the bottom line budget of approximately a little under $6 million. There's three different areas I want to cover: the general fund, the special revenue fund, and then lastly, the enterprise funds. The general fund was about 5.4 million of the $6 million increase. And of that 5.4 million, 1.4 million was related to the fire JPA, the Sagal and the West Side employees coming in as firefighters and now being on our payroll. So that's a direct a pass through to back to them to reimburse us. So that's not really an increase in our cost bottom line, but in our budget, it shows that increase. The $2 million ARPA, or the American Rescue Plan Act grant that has been added into our budget is over last year. There wasn't one last year and there is one. That's about that is $2 million. And then a little under $1 million for the City Hall remodel. 525,000 is the Great Northern Road project. That is all reimbursed by SURA. And then also the Great Northern, or the North Boyer Road Emergency Repair Project of 600,000. That makes the $5.4 million increase in the general fund. Just wanted to quickly go over that part because that's mostly related to either grant or one-time funding sources that we had in the general fund. Special revenue funds actually went down by about $1 million. One was the lot tax was expired in this fiscal year 21. That's about a $500,000 decrease over this current year. And then the memorial fund is on phase 3 next year. And this year is in phase 2, goes into phase 3 with a decrease of a little over $500,000 as well, making that $2 million decrease, or $1 million decrease in the special revenue funds. The last was the enterprise funds with an increase of about $2 million overall. $500,000 of that was for the water, was related to the water fund, and that was water fund master plan projects, identified projects, and then $1.5 million is related to the wastewater treatment facility, the facility plant reconstruction project. So that makes up the increase, decrease, and then increase makes up about $6 million last year's to this year's budget.
Bond repayment. Do we want to touch on water and then wastewater payment of that bond?
The bond payments are consistent, or actually very consistent to last year. This year is to last year, but this coming fiscal year will be the last year that we have the sewer bond payment. So that will be in 2023, there will be no sewer bond payment. That's about $800,000. So just wanted to make light of that. And going into especially the wastewater facility reconstruction project.
So there has been some discussion in the public over the years. It's typically come up around election cycles, which we're coming into again, related to wastewater treatment plant and why we did bridge repairs and why we are now moving in this year into the full redesign and pre-construction of the wastewater treatment plant. We had a citizens advisory committee approximately 4 years ago, and members of the council participated as well on a technical advisory committee, really looking at the wastewater treatment plant, the timing of that plant, compliance with our DEQ requirements and best approaches. And it was through that process and ultimately recommendation to the council body as a whole and a council decision to approach the wastewater treatment plant with bridge upgrades, which have substantially improved our treatment levels at the wastewater treatment facility as best as we can with our current facility, the way that it is, but in compliance or exceeding compliance with all of our permit requirements. As a result of those bridge upgrades, and then not moving into the actual design and construction of the new wastewater treatment plant until we had paid off the bond debt, which will be later this calendar year. As Sarah has mentioned, there was great concern that with increased costs for ratepayers in our wastewater treatment service area, that they would have the existing debt and have debt stacked on debt. So that was the reason for us waiting on that. And we are underway right now with rate studies in both water treatment as well as wastewater treatment. And we'll discuss that in our budget presentation moving forward. Hopefully I get back to where I was. All is good. Anytime we do our budget preparation for a given year, one form of analysis that we are doing as we are in the final stages of preparing our budget to present to council is we go back and do an M&O analysis to look at not only where we are with project costs, but where we are with M&O, both salary and benefits, as well as just our general operating costs, to ensure that we are not reaching a tipping point where we could not sustain M&O and would have to look at cuts in the future. Do we have good balance with what we're doing with projects? Are we too heavy on the M&O side? And then oftentimes we are seeing year over year increases with our budget related to grant funds coming in. And often a question is, well, what's really happening with M&O? So we did complete an analysis on our M&O as proposed by all of our division heads, and particularly looking at the general funds. So this is taking out projects, grants, capital, so really one-time expenditures. What we're doing here is we're looking at our ongoing city expenditures for providing city services to the public. What we saw in our salaries and benefits, and this is across the board in our general fund, is overall an increase of 4.59%, so just under 5%, which is consistent with right now increases in the CPI. And we had a discussion about that at our last meeting relative to our fees at the city. We're seeing a CPI increase of 4.7%. So what we're seeing for escalation increases in salary benefits is under the CPI. What constitutes the increase is we have a council adopted compensation plan, and our employees throughout the city, all of our regular employees who are in ongoing employment status, not project employees, their positions are in a grade system. And as employees are with the city based on satisfactory performance, they move through step increases, which is typical of the government sector. We have 15 steps within each grade range. And in steps 1 through 6, our step increases are at 2.83%. In steps 7 through 15, they are 2.06%. So that accounts for some of this increase that we're seeing in salaries and benefits across the board at the city. Nearly all of our employees are satisfactorily moving through the step system, are not maxed out in terms of the number of steps, so i.e. at step 15. And so are seeing increases as a result of performance and years working with the city. We, as mentioned at our last meeting, we did budget a 2% cost of living increase. So again, that is also reflected in salaries, and our cost of living increases take place January 1st, so the beginning of the calendar year. So in effect, in our fiscal year, that increases the 9 months of the 12-month fiscal year. So in terms of bottom line, the actual impact of our COLA is 1.5%. Overall on salary over a 12-year basis. We've also included in our benefits, consistent with best budgeting practices, we do have inflation increases for medical and dental benefits that are built in as well. So that's also included in the 4.59%. Our benefits renew on a calendar year cycle now as well. So we haven't gotten our renewals for next calendar year. We budgeted for about a 10% increase. We expect to not exceed that. We do track our utilization throughout the year to kind of sense where we're going to come within the budget. Relative to purchase services, this might be consulting services, this might be contract services. Again, across the general fund, we actually have seen a decrease of about 0.08% for this upcoming fiscal year in the proposed budget as opposed to our current budget. We have also seen a resulting decline in supplies, 5.27%. And much of this is due to our efforts to move to electronic records, move away from the paper, and there have been other efficiencies that we've talked about that have resulted in decreases in supplies pretty much across the board at the city. And then finally, just miscellaneous expenses in our division and service area budgets reduced 0.7% across the board for a total increase in our M&O from 2021 to the 2022 budget as proposed of 2.67%. So all of that's taken into consideration. So that's factoring the average across all of those. We do have some new positions that are included in the budget. Those are not included specifically in this M&O analysis because those are new positions that would throw this off. So we're looking at services and personnel, supplies, purchase services, and other miscellaneous expenses, a straight year-on-year comparison of what that looks like across the board. Related to personnel, and I'm going to go back out to our budget book again here. In our online budget book, which council has, and again, the general public has access to, we have an appendix in that budget book. And this is a worksheet that we have produced for council year on, year out. So this is consistent with what we've always done, even before we had an electronic budget book, but now you can electronically see it. This is our analysis of proposed employees by FTE. So you can look across all of our service group areas, and then I will kind of give you a rundown of where we're seeing increases. And for the public that may be following along looking at this, if you scroll on down to the end of this table, there is a description here, a narrative description of all of our increases and the justification for those increases. Overall, across the board, for our fiscal year 2022 budget as proposed, we have an increase in full-time employees of 20.2 employees. The vast majority of that increase is actually related to our fire services, where we have a significant increase with the addition of the employees coming from Sago Fire District as well as West Side Fire District to the city of Sandpoint as our employees. So this is firefighters, this is a deputy fire chief, and this is a half-time assistant for our shared fire services departments. Those additional employees of Sago and West Side are fully paid by Sago and West Side Fire Districts, so reimbursing the city. And going back to, again, that overall increase in our budget, much of that is due to the addition of these employees' salaries and benefits and related costs. And so we reimburse those to the fire districts monthly and receive that reimbursement. So kind of moving our way from then to the rest of our divisions. In our central administrative division, that's our central service divisions, our additional personnel that are included there, and I'll go down to our discussion of this. Hopefully you can see that. In this division, the budget as proposed includes a 0.5 FTE administrative assistant. So we talked a minute ago about the assistant in the fire department, and we hired a new employee, administrative assistant, who is half-time fire and in our shared fire services across the 3 entities. And half the time she is central services admin assistant. So she is responsible. She assists with answering the phones in public inquiries and providing licensing support to the city, and is also backup support for us here for council meetings if the clerk is out, or for some of our other meetings. It is related to what she does in fire on the other side because she provides admin support to the West Side Fire District Board as well as to the Sago Fire District Board. And that again is in the shared fire services for those services. Frequent customer feedback that we've had from our residents, our developers, our businesses, people coming into City Hall. And I know council members have heard that as well, is the challenge of reaching people in City Hall in person over the phone and getting through voicemails and the electronic systems. So you'll see as we've proposed adding positions this year, we're really looking at increasing that customer service to the general public. We kind of hit our peak days with calls in on peak snow days. And where are the plows and what's happening and I was missed and all of those things. Yes, Amanda, those are our calls, those days. So those, we kind of spread those across the city with ensuring that we take all those calls and when are they going to be back and when do I need to move my car and all of those kinds of things. So that is, we're looking to address that with the addition of the administrative assistant. In our IT budget, we included the addition of a full-time IT help desk support position. Currently, this work is contracted out, has been contracted out by the city for years to an outside provider. We did the analysis this year of the hours associated with that, as well as talking with staff about their perceptions of customer service and needs in that regard. And we determined it's actually a savings for us to add the position in-house as opposed to contract that out. So we reduced our contract services budget in IT for that help desk and bringing that position in-house. Our contracted help desk services, not only will we achieve savings by that, but we did an analysis of the hours associated and we save by adding the position in-house. And in addition to that, we pick up some more availability beyond help desk service for training and other support that we need in IT. You'll see as we're talking about projects, one of our projects in IT this year is the implementation of a new city website. So the technical support of that website would be this person providing that support, as well as provide us the additional support for these meetings from our single IT person that we have on staff. In central services, we've also added a temporary FTE project position to support us with back scanning to increase public access to city information. Over the last 6 to 12 months on a daily basis, we are averaging public records requests between 1 and 5 public records requests a day for building permits and associated information for projects. And all of that right now, the public has to turn it in as a public information request. Now staff has that, it processes through the clerk over to building and planning staff, who oftentimes are going and getting hard copy documents, scanning those in to respond to the public records request. And so it ends up in a delay of the public getting their information, and then impacts on our staff that are also impacted by the significant growth in the number of applications coming through. So this would be a temporary project position. At this point, we've budgeted it for a year. The priority would be scanning building and planning records, getting those into our electronic records, and ultimately also having those tie into our public GIS system. So rather than the public having to put in a public records request for past building permits or environmental reviews that we might have files for, you will be able to go into our GIS system, click on a property, and actually access that information real time. So it's more efficient for us. It's better customer service for the public. And one of our positions that we have here in the city that was in finance, we had Carol Hart with us, who's her position was scheduled to come to an end because she was really primarily dedicated to our local option tax collections. And so this was a good opportunity for us to move Carol into a project basis, but keep her benefits, keep her position, keep her employment here with the city. And because she has been with us for the past 5 years, she knows how to answer the phone. She knows how to cover for us in other areas. So it kind of gives us the double benefit of not only the project for this back scanning that needs to occur, but again, also another person that can pick up phones, another person that can provide front desk service to the public coming in.
Excuse me, Jennifer. I had a question just about the record scanning, and actually a member of the public asked me this today. They were trying to get access to, I don't know what they wanted to read, something with our urban transportation plan, but they said that that's not actually available online. Is that correct? That it's just, they believe they were told it's just some book on a shelf somewhere. And they would need to put in a public records request? Or is that maybe just confusion on their part, or is the mass of that not actually available online? Or
Mr. Mayor, would you like me to address the question?
Please.
Great question. We have the prior urban area transportation plan that is no longer in effect because it's been replaced by the multimodal transportation plan that was recently adopted.
okay, so that's become obsolete. Okay, so
The historical nature of it, remains relevant, but it's certainly something that we can add to our website. But I believe you are correct; it is not currently on there. to the best
okay,
of my
so
knowledge.
then that was accurate. So I didn't know if eventually those things are going to be scanned for historical context or easy access for the public. So
We do have it electronic, and it is easy to add to the website, so I'm happy to do that.
okay, great, thank you.
Any other questions on central admin? Moving on to public safety, I did cover fire. In police, you will note that we have an additional FTE included in the proposed budget. That's to add an additional police officer to our force. We produce for the public to know, we get weekly summaries from the police chief of police activity that goes out to the council and to the mayor on a weekly basis to review. I review those as well, and what we're looking at is not only the types of incidences that we're dealing with, just general information for the council to be aware, but for the chief and I, both of us are also looking at that summary for what are the number of incidents and what are the impacts. And for the last 12 to 15 months, our calls for service for police have been up substantially over prior years. And what we are also have seen now for the last 6 months is in police, we would see ebbs and flows, kind of like what we've seen with tourism related to our calls for service. So we'd hit peak time in the summer months, particularly July and August. We would be in peak time now. And we would see calls significantly drop off by at least a quarter to a third, generally from about November into about March, April, May of each year, and then it starts climbing again. We have seen our calls for service in police stay pretty consistent with actually summer peaks now for 6+ months straight. And we saw rising calls last year with the COVID pandemic, with people calling into wanting to check on loved ones here. As businesses were closed for a period of time, police checking alarms, checking locked doors. So we have seen police calls for service go up fairly substantially, and therefore have added another police officer into the budget. As proposed in the budget, we have applied for a grant for the police officer. Linda submitted that grant application about 3 weeks ago. We expect to hear sometime in September for a grant that would start in October. So we're hopeful that we get a COPS hiring grant that will cost for that position for 2 years before we take on the full costs. If not, our backup plan is we do have budget for replacement of police vehicles. And if we were not to get the grant, that would kind of be our fallback for personnel, because at this point, the personnel is the priority for us in police services, although vehicles, in keeping up with our replacement plan are needing to be replaced as well. In our Parks, Recreation and Open Space Division, we've got a couple of personnel changes there as well. Cammie, as most of you know, and the public knows very well, for her excellent customer service, and she's been a longtime employee in Parks and Rec. She cut her schedule back several years ago to 4 days a week. And so we haven't had Cammie in on Mondays. It's been Kim and Jason kind of filling in for front desk in Parks and Recreation. And her kids are further along in school, and Cammie's available to come back now full-time, return to a 5-day-a-week schedule. And so we've included that in our budget, and it will also, again, help us with the front desk customer service as we complete our remodel and get moved back downtown or back downstairs with our customer service area. We're going to be crossing over with our customer service training across divisions and across service groups. So it's kind of all hands on deck to help answer calls and also meet with citizens that are coming in seeking assistance or services. We've also included in Parks and Recreation 0.5 creative vitality coordinator as suggested in our arts, culture, and historic preservation master plan. It didn't call for a full part-time position, but we felt that is a good starting place at this point to see how that works, what gets accomplished, and it's also what fit into the budget. So those are our significant changes in Parks and Recreation. And again, we have a discussion down below of our changes in Parks and Rec. In our Infrastructure and Development Services Division, I've got, again, narrative down below talking about that. We have another longtime employee of the city who will be retiring this November. Bruce has been with us for many years as our right-of-way inspector, and he's helped us as an inspector on our construction projects, done a lot of work lately with Memorial Field and also some of our permitting. And Bruce will be retiring this November. And so some of his work has already been reallocated. We have a construction manager, Holly, that joined our team this year, and you all got to meet her when she presented on the sewer lateral project. She's managing that project, and Amanda's got her lined up, Amanda and Dan both, to manage a number of our other projects, including Pine Street, when that comes up. So she'll be taking on a lot of the construction management responsibilities. We have a permit tech, Sean, who is over in building and planning, who has taken on some of the permit tech responsibilities. And we're kind of going to assess what our impacts are as we get moving through the year, whether we need to do something with a project position paid for by building and planning revenues to help support permitting that's coming in. So as sent out to council last week in an update, we had 58 building applications come in last week alone. So the volume in building and planning is significant. And we're trying to be really prudent about how we respond to the volume that's coming in, but also not get us in a place where we are overstaffed with regular personnel at the city. So that's something we will look at. We also have included in the budget, and so that's how we get to Bruce out another position in, and we average out to a 0.2 FTE change in our IDS division as presented with a new position of a utilities division director. And in our overall organization structure, we are looking at, with this, moving our utilities group and that area out into a separate division from our Infrastructure Development Services division. And I'll show you what that structure looks like here in a minute. But that gets us to our change in FTEs of 20.2, with, again, the vast majority of that change really being in fire services. Okay, I had mentioned the division reorganization. Right now in our infrastructure development services group, it is all of the functions that are shown under infrastructure and development services. They are responsible for all of our development, all of our building and planning services, all of our maintenance and capital projects, streets, fleet, engineering support for development, as well as everything that is on the left side too with our utilities. So our water treatment, our wastewater treatment, our collections and distribution for water and wastewater. And at this point, with the volume of work that's coming in, with us moving into design and build of a wastewater treatment plant, with us revisiting our rates and doing not only a rate study, but also an equity analysis in our water and wastewater treatment, there will be a significant amount of work with our rate study and all the analysis that goes with that. And we kicked that work off actually last week and are waiting for our final proposal from a area provider that will be providing those services to us. In addition to that, we have multiple agreements with rural water districts. We are in discussions with Kootenai-Ponderay Sewer District about the potential for interconnectivity into our wastewater treatment plant. That could be a win-win for ratepayers in both systems. Environmentally could be a positive thing for our area, and addresses the permit challenges right now, Kootenai-Ponderay Sewer District. So there is significant amount of work in our utility services division, and what we've seen over the last 6 to probably 12 months is as our development projects have picked up, as our capital projects are picking up coming off of master planning, our area that we are not giving as much attention to just due to staff time and how thin we have people spread, that really filling back in with a utilities director would be most prudent at this time. We have had a utilities superintendent in the past, and we have left that position unfilled. So this would be close to filling what we've had in the past with a utilities superintendent. Anything I've missed on this, Amanda, since this is your group? So now we're going to move into a lot of other speakers besides just me, which will be good for all of us. And what we want to talk about is moving on from M&O to what are the projects that we have in our proposed budget before council. And we want to kick off this discussion with really talking about a fundamental shift we're doing here at the city from a significant master planning effort across the board with the city as part of the strategic priorities adopted by City Council to now we're moving into implementation of all of the elements of those master plans. And we still have some master plans to do, and I'll get to those at the end, but I want to start with first the master plans that have been completed in this current and the previous fiscal year. We completed a shared fire services assessment, which resulted in a new joint powers agreement, as well as structure for Selkirk Fire Rescue and EMS. And that again was what was responsible for employees moving across agencies over to City of Sandpoint. We completed our Parks, Recreation, and Open Space Master Plan, which is arguably our plan that single-handedly we had more public involvement, largest workshops that we have seen across all of our master planning efforts. We had multiple community workshops, not only starting with focus group interviews, with key stakeholder interviews, but ultimately culminating into community workshops where we had 100 to 150 people in attendance at multiple workshops here, in addition to the community workshops at council meetings. And that led to the culmination of the adoption of our Parks, Rec, and Open Space Master Plan. We completed the first stage of our watershed management plan this year, which was overall a management plan for the watershed. You will see as we talk further on, we still have the watershed recreation plan in next year's budget as an ongoing activity. We completed and adopted our multimodal transportation master plan, our arts, culture, historic preservation master plan, our water system master plan, our sanitary sewer capital plan, and we have also completed administratively an IT master plan and a GIS roadmap, which really is the strategic direction for our GIS system, both internally and externally moving forward. So with that, I'm going to invite Kim to come up because we are on to Parks, Recreation, and Open Space. With our Parks Recreation Master Plan, again, it was about an 18-month effort, and we wanted to share this slide with you today that kind of leading into this discussion that actually wasn't our slide. We were sent this from Greenplay, who was our consultant for our Parks and Rec Master Plan, and this was used by another community, and they called our Parks and Recreation Master Plan a Parks and Rec Master Plan on steroids, wasn't it, Kim? It was robust, not only in terms of overall the master planning efforts, but master planning efforts, which went to conceptual plans, and we moved into finalizing projects with our 1% local option tax very quickly over the period of a single year. With that, again, I would note our 1% local option tax expired December 31st of last year, and may be one of those revenue sources that's really needed to impact in order to implement fully the concepts in our Parks and Recreation Master Plan. And as we've had discussions over the last, I think, probably 3 years, and not as much in depth this year, but as a reminder, we have been able to do a local option tax because we have a status with the state as a resort city. When the census numbers come through and we have passed a population of 10,000, we lose our status as a resort city and our ability to implement or have our voters consider a local option tax in the future. So that is, we will likely have one time that we could go back to voters and ask for support for our additional parks and recreation concepts and implementation of those, because we are at our 10,000 number. We're hoping that with census numbers coming out for 2020, the census doesn't find we're past it for 2020. But we will not make it through another census under 10,000.
Correct. And I think that the Memorial Field is a perfect example of how we're able to take that 1%. That project alone, we were able to generate over $500,000 in grants and other income based on that tax that we were able to collect, because we now have the talent and leadership and your vision here to make that happen. So, I mean, the plan that we have now is doable, and we can achieve this, and we can take that 1% and actually position ourselves for the next 50 years. I mean, we can do this thing, but it'd be this truly, and I think we all understand not really the sense of urgency, but the opportunity is before us now, before we're right at that cusp of the 1%. So I could sit here and get on my box and, but I won't do that because it'll be a long night. But before I let the box go, though, I do want to say this is my 36th year doing this budget process. And I'm super thankful and impressed with our mayor, council, leadership team, and our staff for your vision and talent. You know, looking back 36 years ago, we didn't have all the cool technology and all and the team in place to really see what was coming. And it's just so impressive for me to be able to see what we have and all the plans and how we're going forward and position ourselves to stay ahead of the curveball. Not saying a lot because we got a pretty fat curveball coming at us. So I really appreciate everybody on the team, mayor and council leading that effort. So
we wanted to highlight some of our accomplishments down at War Memorial Field, and we're super excited about this video we just got, or this image we just got yesterday. So one of our police officers had a drone and flew it up, and so this is what it looks like down at War Memorial Field. Probably not right now because we've got voters out, but early in the morning when festival is set up, on that field. And that was one of the questions when we were coming up with the artificial field surface. Could it accommodate youth and could it accommodate the festival? And we've seen it accommodate the festival over the last week, and our image kind of shows what that setup looks like. And with all of the planking that was discussed that was required to turn in part of that field into a parking lot. So again, going back to what was envisioned at War Memorial Field and where we are and what's next. When we went to voters back in 2015 to consider a local option tax, it was a 5-year tax that was to support replacement of Cotton Barlow Stadium, our grandstands there, and then our gateway to the stadium and to the field, improvements along Ontario Street, and then field improvements, replacement of the field surface with an undetermined whether it was going to be natural or artificial at the time. And we went through that process a few years ago. And then finally with additional dollars to go to other infrastructure improvements at parks. And not specifically specified for a specific project. Over the last 5.5 years, we completed the improvements along Ontario Street. We completed the new entryway to the stadium and the field. We have a new Cotton Barlow Stadium that is a throwback in terms of design and feel to the old stadium, but with significantly more seating, much safer, much improved press box. And just in the last week, we have also worked with Ting to bring fiber to the premises. So for broadcasting games this year for the school and others, it will be a fiber-based broadcast. And we are probably 2 months away from having permanent public Wi-Fi at the facility, extending all the way from the gateway down to the boat launch at the water. And that is a partnership that we've managed to forge with Ting, and they are providing that service at no charge to the public in the city. So that will be going in. We completed replacement of the field surface to an artificial surface and added a softball field in addition to the baseball field, all new lighting, relocated the Osprey, and then moved into a project that would improve the parking lot, expand boat trailer parking, replace our gangways down to the docks, added an ADA accessible non-motorized kayak paddleboard launch, which you can see down there in the bottom. We redid all of the landscaping and on-site stormwater management associated with the parking lot. And over by the gazebo that's located down at the boat launch, we added an ADA accessible restroom on site, which didn't exist there in the past, and an ADA accessible walkway down to the waterfront. Again, in the past 5.5 years. And as Kim mentioned, not only did we use the local option tax to accomplish this, but we used that to leverage an additional $500,000 in grant and donations in the last 3 years alone for improvements down at the site. Anything else?
No, that's it.
We missed on this one,
Yeah,
Kim.
yeah, we're tooting our horn on that, as we should.
We have additional projects for the Memorial Field next year. So this again is the rendering that we had initially. So it's kind of interesting. This was our rendering. And again, going back, what we ended up with. So you'll kind of see this theme going forward as we get talking about the Parks and Rec master planning and next steps relative to the master planning. We start with all of our projects in our master plans historically and currently with, as Amanda likes to call them, cartoons. So we've all adopted that now internally. And it's a concept for what we're going to see. And it's a public driven concept. But that concept then needs to go through further vetting as we're moving into final design and engineering to make sure, did we get it right? Did we miss something? Does something need to get moved around? From an engineering standpoint, is the concept actually buildable, and what tweaks need to happen there? So you can kind of see that difference from our concept to the final with War Memorial Field. In our budget for next year, we have dock improvements down at War Memorial. And Kim, if you want to talk about what we've got coming up next.
Yeah, that exciting there. We'll expand our footprint of docks available for the boating public. When they launch, they'll actually be able to tie up if they need to come in off the river, use the restroom facility, take a break. And then also put in some additional log booms to keep some of the seaweed and aquatic debris from blowing into that bay. So it'll kind of help keep it off some of the trailers in there. Linda's already been successful. I think we shared that on the $230,000 or is it $275 in grants for that project. So there again, we were able to take some of that money that we were able to secure and use that for match. And so that's the cool part is both the waterways, and then as we're doing these other projects is Land and Water Conservation Fund, which is a federal grant that continues to grow. Long story short, a long time ago, they built a lot of parks with that, kind of went away, but that's coming back now. So we're really poised right now to be able to capitalize on that opportunity. So really excited about that.
We've got a project in there also to be included for staging and storage of the fencing material.
Right, for the field. So as it is right now, and we've all seen it out there, all the fence out there, it has to be moved around, and it's a lot of fence. So we'll have a place to be able to put it now. It's like just in the place right now in about center of the picture right there. We'll be probably starting next week or after the festival, putting in a batting cage that has been partially donated for where we've been storing the fence. So it's a perfect opportunity for us to provide that for the kids for the batting and pitching, and have a place to store our fencing. So that's one of the amenities that we were not able to do right off the bat, but the community came together and presented that opportunity. So we're excited about that.
And then finally, one of the projects we talked about as part of the Memorial Field, the parking lot project and stormwater improvements down there that is yet to be completed and will be done in this next fiscal year is a stormwater treatment project that will be upstream. So we combined the outfalls at War Memorial Field. So we don't have, and that was a long time project that the city had on the books. So we didn't have the number of outfalls there at War Memorial Field. And this is combining upstream treatment before it gets to that point, located at Dubs Field, 9th grade field, or we've got several descriptions for that field. So being a stormwater project, it is eligible as a grant project with the awarded ARPA grant to the city. So we did include this as a earmark project for that ARPA grant funding.
I'm excited about that. And Maeve, our new parks planning projects person, has experience in that. And it is a trend, and as it should be, to use our parks and green space for stormwater treatment prior to, we're all, number one, water quality to keep our lake clean. So I think that's really an opportunity. We'll win all the way around.
One of the other elements that will occur as a part of that project is you've probably noted over the last couple of years, our field there, which is also kind of one of our gateways to downtown, has become a bit of an eyesore, drying out, and it usually isn't looking too good by about July. So we had a project actually planned there last year to get a sprinkler system there and really improve that field, the playing area, and from a visibility standpoint to the public. And it also will actually improve our water over to the community garden there as well. And we'll be timing that in conjunction with this project. So we had put that on hold, but that is included as one of the components of this overall stormwater project.
Thank you.
We've got our concept for City Beach. And again, I would just touch back on this and again, reemphasize that we get a concept. A concept is a cartoon, and a cartoon needs further vetting. And we took the first step with further vetting that, anticipating our project out of the gate that we believe we can leverage grant funding for. Most, if not all of the project is the realigned boat parking, boat trailer parking, and the realigned boat launch. There's a grant cycle that's coming up at the end of the year, and we've had many conversations about lining up for that now. You'll recall as we were discussing the City Beach design and the land swap down at City Beach, there were concerns as to whether the boat launch would be feasible at that site, whether it was deep enough for one, would that work with the queuing of boats coming in and out. And so we had our design firm that came up with the initial concept, but we specifically sent the boat launch over to an engineering firm that specializes in dock launches, marina designs. And so we got a preliminary engineered design for the marina and the boat launch as proposed in our concept. So that's reflected kind of down below on the left. And we have budgeted $35,000 in the proposed budget for kind of next steps of some engineering review of not only this area, but also kind of taking a look at our jetty as well. With the high winds that have come up over the last few years, we've had some impact on our jetty, and so we need to go back and take a look at that as well, both for the safety of the public ultimately, and also to look at, are there opportunities for additional marina space over there? As council, I'm sure, is fully aware, there is no marina space to be found anywhere on the lake. I know you all are hearing it, and we are hearing it in the Parks Department about the requests for more boat slips, more boat space. And one of the positive things for the city relative to our City Beach Marina as well as the Windbag Marina is it is a revenue generator for our overall park system. It's what drives a lot of our parks capital revenues that fund parks capital improvements to our overall park system. We bring in about $500,000 a year just off of the marinas. And so looking at additional moorage space for our residents and local users in the area is a way to not only provide them the desired access to the lake, but also to provide a revenue stream to support our park system.
And if we don't run out of money, the one other thing I'd like to do is kind of with the sand on the perimeter of the beach. A lot of people don't know, but that sand actually was sucked in from outside the lake and brought in, and it's been 50, 60, 70 years ago. So we do relocate it every year, redistribute it because of the wave action and push it back. But I think long-term, we need to be prepared to re-energize that at some point. So just thinking ahead.
As Kim mentioned earlier, we do have a new parks planning and development manager on board, and she starts with us full-time on Monday. Her name is Maeve, and she is a landscape architect and is also extremely experienced and has gone to school for construction design as well. So she's in a similar position that ends this week with the city of Anchorage, Alaska. She's been down here, was at our our last planning and zoning meeting and presenting on our downtown waterfront concept and some code changes related to that have been, that will be coming back before planning and zoning later this month. And she will be revetting all of these concepts with the public. So we've heard these have kind of sat and marinated with the public for some time that, for example, we need more room. We need to add more courts for beach volleyball. It's been growing in popularity. You can see the crowds down there. We need to look at how we're going to accommodate that. We have heard from people that they maybe think that combining all of our courts at one location maybe isn't the best approach. Maybe our courts should be spread out across parks. So all of those ideas and finalizing these concepts really into a phasing and final design. Maeve will be taking that up this fall when she is here full time beginning in September. So be prepared for lots of community workshops on parks in the immediate future.
I had a
can't wait for
question.
you
Oh,
to-
sorry.
I can't wait for you to meet her. It's taken about a year to find her, but she is perfect. Perfect. And especially with the opportunity that we have in the watershed, her experience with trails, watershed, front country recreation, her expertise, technical and passion and dedication is going to be like, I couldn't be more pleased.
Mhm. So in our cartoon, I'm assuming we're going to have some fancy wastewater treatment sort of landscaping in that boat launch area down here at City Beach. Yeah.
I think she's talking about your lift station, Amanda.
Well, excuse me, so the lift station moves sanitary sewer, and that will be not as visible to the public as it currently is in the final design. Are you referring to?
No,
stormwater
I'm
treatment?
referring to stormwater treatment, I guess, down here at City Beach with this new giant parking lot that can drain into our water that we want to keep clean. So I'm
Oh, I
assuming
think
in that
We're gonna have all kinds of
engineering
opportunities.
process, there will be a bunch of stormwater treatment integrated into all of
Oh,
that.
yeah.
Okay.
For sure.
Yeah, yeah.
Significant.
It's just not in the cartoon, so it's hard.
It was in the cartoon discussions, so.
We're gonna be there.
Yeah.
But yes. Our downtown waterfront concept for projects that we have included in this next year's budget, undergrounding the utilities is one of those. That's bringing fiber along that Farmers Landing project to serve the properties along there and significantly improve the public views looking out on Sand Creek and looking from the byway into town with those huge transmission lines coming underground. We have included engineering and pre-construction costs for the Farmers Landing area itself. Council will recall that the city purchased this property. It was closed in early 2016, January of 2016, the purchase of this waterfront there and some of the adjacent parking lot area that's reflected there on the plaza, primarily for stormwater treatment. But as we got looking at the downtown waterfront, we were coming in off of discussions with businesses with the Downtown Business Improvement District and what was going to happen with that. There was a lot of discussion about rethinking and reimagining our downtown as a park. And one of the top priorities in our Parks and Recreation Open Space Master Plan is maintaining and expanding public access, public space to shorelines and waterways. And so, and then also economic development was envisioned and was an important component in our Parks and Rec Master Plan as well. So it was looking at this space as a public gathering space and improving public access to the water, both for a gathering space, a celebration space, a decompressing space, and for a recreational space as well. So again, this will be vetted. And I must tell you, Maeve is so unbelievably excited about this project. She is emailing us every day with other model projects to look at, funding opportunities for this. We believe we can leverage a lot of money for this, and that this really is a national type of project that is an opportunity for state-of-the-art stormwater treatment, as well as really beginning to imagine the improvement of a green belt along the Sand Creek, leading all the way up to the watershed and up to Schweitzer. This is something that's been discussed in city master plans going back into the early 2000s. So this isn't something that was reinvented. It's been building upon all of that and getting refined. And actually, this is the latest of about 10 cartoons that exist for the Sand Creek waterfront. We've also included with impact fees, $200,000. These are parked impact fees, which are available for property purchase and park improvements. And this is new development that pays for that. And it's a result of new development impacts on our city. We are actively looking at the opportunities on that north side of the stairways there at Farman's Landing, where in this concept, he had shown there's a building kind of down there, and I would point it with my finger on here, but my mouse has locked up on me. So it's along the boardwalk. He shows the potential for a private development, but we are imagining the opportunity for the extension of Farman's Landing for even more stormwater treatment. And again, public access to the waterfront. So we have been in some conversations about that already and have included that in our budget for next year. And then finally, one of our projects that was proposed as part of these concepts, there was a follow-up presentation to council about the relocation or the location of the historic carousel in our park system. And then our cartoon concepts, there were two proposed locations for that. One was at City Beach. The other was over at the Sand Creek parking lot. And it's reflected with a building there as either a commercial building opportunity, private opportunity, or they specifically identified this as one of the two locations for the carousel. The Carousel Smiles Group has moved along with their planning and feasibility of locations, and where they have landed as their preferred site is there at the Sand Creek parking lot, which I know Kim is thrilled about that option as opposed to the City Beach option. And they'll be coming back to City Council in the near future with more information about that, a proposal in that regard. And looking for the opportunity to lease the land for that siting of the carousel and for them to kick off their capital campaign for that project. So that is a model that's used by many cities. So it creates, again, revenue for our park system. We don't anticipate losing that parking lot. Impacts on that parking lot being significant. What they're looking for at siting is related to the hillside that's there with a large public dock located there, and they would be responsible for maintenance of the carousel, but the community would benefit from it, and the city owns the property to allow that to happen. And again, that will be part of a discussion that's coming to Planning and Zoning at their August 17th meeting related to some code changes that would allow for the development of the Farman's Landing project to include these public gathering spaces and components, as well as that particular site location for the carousel. So we currently, with our setback rules, it's not just applying to building, it's any structures. And as we look at public plazas, we look at an amphitheater, we look at a carousel location, we look at those kinds of things, they're considered structures. So that will be coming to P&Z later this month. Down at our Traverse Centennial Great Northern, what we've called our sports complex, we have another concept for there that has been vetted through the public process, and again will be significantly revetted and probably with some revisions moving into this fall. And we've included in our budget 95,000 for improvements at the skate park. And again, back to you.
Yeah, great. Yeah, the skate park originally was built in 2005. And to me, it seems like yesterday, but it's 15, 16 years ago. It was a small park at the time. It was built with $130,000 in all donated money. It has a small or the larger bowl, which is a more beginner and an intermediate bowl, and then the deeper kidney bowl, which had pool coping, which pool coping is the stuff on the side, and the concrete had concrete coping that has deteriorated over the years and needs replaced. And so we looked at a plan to replace that part, which will begin on Monday, and then working with the Bonner County Skate Park Association for looking at plans for expansion consistent with our Parks and Rec master plan, which calls for, if we're phasing, to prioritize and make that one of the priorities, as it does for like the small pump track. And working about a year or so ago, I was working with Pop on the smaller pump track that also calls for a larger pump track on that plan as well, which is kind of down where we store some of the goals right now. So that's kind of tackling again. I think that we have a lot of opportunities there, and depending on the 1% tax, but this is something that we can plan, go forward. I don't know exactly how much the 95 will come in, but that's where I'm kind of waiting for Maeve as the project and landscape architect to kind of come in and lead that charge. I'm really excited too. The one other thing I don't know if we got added in the budget, but the $25,000 that we have in the watershed rec master plan, and I'm really excited about that. And again, I kind of mentioned it earlier with Maeve coming on board and her experience and enthusiasm. And one of the coolest parts is she's come in and written plans for safety, access, overall management plans. And it's not just a trail; it's the overall management and sustainability of a front country experience that's going to be world class, truly. And I know that Deb, I appreciate everything you've done on that behalf, and the mayor, and that's something that we've been working on for a long time. And I know sometimes it seems like maybe the city to the group and some of my friends that are riders that has been a little bit slow, but from someone when we went from nothing and locked out of nothing to going forward to a plan that's going to be well thought out, sustainable, maintain our clean water resource, safe, and all those elements that we need to take into consideration going forward. And then again, bringing Maeve in with that experience. And when I first met her, and that I spent half a day with her talking about her experience. She also has great experience in playgrounds, ADA stuff, and other park stuff. But I really gravitated to her personality, to the Sandpoint, how we roll. She thinks the same way that we do. So I'm stoked.
I had a comment while we're on this page. So I would just like to make the comparison with the skate park having been originally put in place by a lot of volunteers and $135,000 spent, and then the city taking it on as their responsibility and now putting $95,000 into the maintenance and seeing it as something that they can continue as a legacy and provide for their residents. And I think that, as I've stated before, it's time that we look at our watershed and our trails that way. And the club has done a lot of work and found a lot of grants. And at some point, I would like to see that same transition occur and a bigger vision for the perpetuity of those trails and the city taking on more of that responsibility instead of pushing that off onto a club. And I know that will also take some time, and they definitely have the expertise. So there would, as we've talked about before, the opportunity for public nonprofit or public-private relationships that can be stronger, because those trails will only be as strong as that club. And as we all know, nonprofits can wane and ebb as they move forward, depending on who's in their organizations, and people move away and people move in. So I'm hoping that we can see a transition in that matter where we're putting more than $10,000 into those trails. And I'm sure as Maeve gets here and develops all those plans, she will champion that. So I'm looking forward to that.
I think so too. And that's what you're saying is the city is we are all the city. And I hear what you're saying.
Mm-hmm.
And the enthusiasm for people and any group that's successful is to look at it that way. We're saying the same thing.
Yes, I agree.
Along the line of trails, as we've been trying to, and you'll see this theme pop up as we're presenting tonight and moving into infrastructure. And as we've been adopting master plans, we have continued in this budget to do a set aside for sidewalks. You will see we've done an increase for our pavement maintenance management programs. We have increased and set aside a budget for bicycle connectivity and improvements, and we have included in this year's budget 50,000 specifically for trails. And that's on our Parks and Recreation side of the house, because there was so much discussion about trails and trail connectivity. The way that we determine and related to a bicycle route or sidewalks or trails is between IDS and over on Parks and Recreation, who's on first. If it's part of a larger project, or if it is the project, is it about recreation connectivity, recreation use? Is that the driving project? Or is, for example, when we're doing like a multimodal path and it's part of a street construction, which you'll hear coming up related to Great Northern, that's going to be on the IDS side of the house. So trails is kind of going to move depending what it's related to, what the project is about. But in our Parks, Rec, and Open Space, we do have $50,000 that is budgeted for trail maintenance, trail construction. Our top priority project that we've had in terms of multimodal trails, really building that connection from town to out of town, is that missing piece along Boyer Avenue. There's a grant opportunity that is coming up this fall. And so our priority project for application at this point would be the Boyer project. But if for some reason we don't get that grant, we do have additional funding for other trails, and Maeve will be leading the efforts around community involvement and prioritization around a city adopted master trails plan. So that will be moving forward.
Thanks, Jennifer.
So my comment would be that 50,000 appears to be a little bit more street oriented with that connection, as opposed to nature type trails. So it seems like it would be more in Amanda's expertise at this point with the development over there in that area, but it's just a little confusing to look at as a council member.
It would be because it's the multimodal trail in and of itself and part of a broader trail connectivity that really falls under what the planning and development that will be happening on the park side, but certainly there will be involvement on the IDS side with it too. So across all of our projects, and you saw that even with the utilities division, the construction and the utilities division really stays over with IDS, although management, treatment types, a lot of that planning will occur on the utilities side. So we do definitely work across as a team, and even as we see projects come through being planned, and whether it be a subdivision, whether it be a PUD, it is typical that we are also bringing in the park side of the house into IDS to be part of those discussions. So we work across our divisions, even though we're separate divisions in terms of structural reporting, we very much work as a team. So
I guess I would request for next year's budget if we can define paved trails versus non-paved trails, so that's a little more clear for the public where we're putting our money and what is a little bit more transportation, multimodal, get to and from work, as the Dover path is, as opposed to recreational that is maybe more the pump track design or something in the watershed, or something that is more on the waterfront oriented with like the boardwalk or the trails down that area, or for that matter, our sections of the Pend Oreille Bay Trail, which are definitely much more recreation oriented at this point, until those trails are finished and connect Pend Oreille someday, hopefully. And then I think we will see them as more transportation for people, but I would like to see that more well-defined.
With that, we'll move into our next plan and that segue into multimodal. So Amanda, I'll hand it over to you.
Thank you, Jennifer. As Dan mentioned earlier in a presentation regarding our pavement maintenance projects, we really look at those in two different categories. We have reconstruction of roadways and we have sealing of projects, roadway sealing. We used to refer to it as asphalt overlay. The fact is most of our streets in Sandpoint are deteriorated to the point that we can't actually just overlay them, which is keeping the existing asphalt in place and putting new asphalt on top. So most of our pavement maintenance projects are actually tearing out the asphalt, fixing the subgrade, and then replacing it. So on the left-hand side of the screen, we're representing a total of $600,000 within our pavement maintenance, in addition to another $600,000, as Dan mentioned, for our emergency repair on North Boyer Road that's anticipated, resulting from the geotechnical analysis. On the right-hand side, the significant project, I would say one of our major street projects that's been in the works for a number of years, in fact, began in 2010 with the SURA, or the NURA, I guess technically, the Northern Urban Renewal Agency. And that plan was the identification of Great Northern revitalization. So that project is really the entire corridor going all the way from Baldy Mountain north to Woodland. Again, identified in 2010, and we continue to progress that. We provided a detailed presentation, Dan did, our city engineer, at the SURA board meeting this week on Tuesday. It is on our website if you'd really like to take a deep dive into that project. I encourage you to watch that video. He did a nice job of going over the concepts, the costs, the phasing of that project. And so in our fiscal year 22 request in that budget, we've allocated $600,000. Really the substantial amount of that effort is property acquisition. We are doing our very best to get this project to the point that we feel it's going to be strong to apply for grants. The SURA funds only are anticipated to pay for approximately half, just under half of the project costs, which are coming in right at around $20 million. And so it's a significant project, and the more that we can get it shovel ready and have all of the property acquisition in place, as well as all the geotechnical and permitting efforts that come on the front end of a project, it'll better position us to get those additional dollars that are needed. We have aggressively planned this project, assuming that we'll get grant funds, to have all construction completed by 2026. So it's a pretty significant effort on our team's part in that regard. And then we also have, as Jennifer mentioned earlier, we have dedicated sidewalk projects as well as bike path improvements. Those are resulting from our multimodal transportation plan, and really those priority networks that we saw, and resolving some of those existing issues. With that, I will pause to see if you have any questions on what's on the screen. If you had any other thoughts or questions. No. Excellent. One project that is not on this slide that I think is certainly worth mentioning, it is related to some of our master planning efforts. We completed a multimodal transportation plan, as everyone is aware. We are a partner in an urban area transportation plan update. That is a plan that is largely funded by a grant. You'll see it in our budget as well for $170,000. It is, when I say largely funded, from the city of Sandpoint's perspective, it is wholly funded by outside dollars. So much of that is grant funds. The remaining is contributions from our adjacent cities. So Pend Oreille and Dover and Kootenai, the Independent Highway District. We are all collaborating to work through an update to an urban area transportation plan where we have commonalities, such as in access management standards, looking at areas, looking at areas where we have interconnectivity. Of course, the fly hits me right as I'm speaking. Interconnectivity between the jurisdictions and how we can really benefit from those efficiencies. And so I'm looking forward to us being a part of that effort. That was the only other significant project that is in this year's budget. Again, they're pass-through costs. So we serve as the administrating lead on that project, being the bigger jurisdiction, but we're certainly working together with our other agencies. And then last but certainly not least, we have budgeted a LED retrofit for streetlights in town to ensure that we can get those to be more efficient and cost effective. And so with that, I don't have anything else to add on streets.
Okay. Going back to another plan that has been adopted in this fiscal year, the Arts, Culture, and Historic Preservation Master Plan. We've included in the budget $10,000 for historic preservation projects, and typically this is pass-through grants that come through the state, includes training around historic preservation for members of our commission. We've also included $20,000 towards public art projects. This is SURA funding, and SURA does have a set aside of 1% of revenues for public art projects. So that's again, the funding source for those. We are currently seeking applications and plan to have, believe the mayor plans to have some recommendations for appointments to the new Arts, Culture, and Historic Preservation Commission, probably next month. So giving people time to kind of move through summer months and get into fall, and then for us to get this underway. And as I mentioned earlier, we have a Creative Vitality Coordinator, 0.5 FTE, as suggested in this master plan, included in the budget as well. We've also just recently submitted a grant application to fund a portion of that position, as well as requested $100,000 in pass-through grant funding that might be available for projects of this commission. So we'll wait to hear about that grant opportunity. And again, a reminder to council and the public that in our budgets, in accordance with a shift we did as a result of strategic planning a couple of years ago, we've included $1 million in our budget from year to year for grant opportunities that might come up, that we're applying for, new things that might come up throughout the year. And as grants come in, we apply it towards that cap. That's an allocated amount that council's given us. So that is not, that's general grant dollars and flow of that. That was moving away again from, we might apply for a grant for a project, so we'll stick it in the budget and we may or may not get it. And so you see this project moving forward from year to year. We've had a lot of those, and really trying to get ourselves to the point that we have a budget that what's in there for projects, that's what we're going to deliver in that year. So instead, we just have the $1 million for grant funds. It's not identified as projects, but those come and go through council meetings throughout the year as council approves grant application submissions, as well as acceptance of grant awards. So that particular grant would be in that $1 million, because it's kind of an unknown, and we didn't identify it specifically as a project in the budget. With that, I'm going to hand it back over to Amanda on utility infrastructure projects, and we're going to go back over to our story from our budget book. So
thank you, Jennifer. As we dive into our utility infrastructure capital improvement projects, I just wanted to mention and kind of give a broader perspective here. Between the years, the fiscal years 21 as well as this fiscal year 22, our Infrastructure and Development Services Division is responsible for over 40 projects in total. And that's not including supporting other divisions, as we previously mentioned. And so I bring that up because half of those projects are in our utility sector. Between water projects as well as wastewater projects, the fiscal year 22 budget totals $4.5 million. So it's significant. And I'd also just like to, again, put things into perspective a little bit. Of those 40, when I reference our team in Infrastructure and Development Services, those are largely managed by 2 individuals, and that's Dan Taddick, our city engineer, as well as Holly, our construction manager. So I really give them kudos. That's a significant volume. Also just noting, not to embarrass him this evening because he is here, but Dan is also our solely responsible engineer for all private development engineering reviews. So every time someone's putting in a water main or a sewer extension, that's Dan leading those reviews and signing off on them for the state. So he has a significant task in front of him for fiscal year 22. So I'll tell you what he's going to be leading and working on. We do work together very closely. One of our largest projects that we have in the pipeline, as you're well aware, and as Jennifer has mentioned, is our wastewater treatment plant replacement project. That is currently, well, I'll speak in 2017 dollars since that's consistent with our facility plan. That is a $50 to $70 million project. That's a significant effort and requires a lot of resources dedicated to it to make sure that it's managed effectively. So that is probably one of our largest projects for in wastewater for this coming fiscal year. We've allocated 1.5 million. Those dollars are intended to be spent on program management, meaning getting to the point where we have a design build contractor in place, as well as engaging that design builder that's selected to begin completing our preliminary engineering report, which is basically the design that's required by the state before we can actually move forward with any form of construction. As Jennifer mentioned, we're not intending to stack debt on debt. This is cash that we have on hand to begin those efforts. In addition, we have talked about bridge improvements in the past and a little bit this evening. The wastewater bridge improvements, again, bridge means bridging the gap. We've already completed a substantial amount of those identified improvements. And really, when we're looking at how are we going to allocate those funds, we're looking at what's the highest risk of failure at this facility and what are the consequences of those failure. And so that's how we're making our decisions. To date and into the into the fiscal year 22, we've invested in phosphorus chemical feed to ensure that we're exceeding our requirements in that regard, as well as probably one of the most significant costs in the pipeline is the completion of a preliminary engineering report and subsequent purchase of new screening for our headworks, which is basically where all of the wastewater enters the plant. So a failure of that would have significant consequences. We don't have redundancy in that system. So making sure we have something that can get us through until the plant's replaced is critical. We have a couple other planning efforts budgeted that are quite important, actually. One of them is in our wastewater collections area, doing hydraulic analysis, as we've spoken about in prior council meetings. And that's really taking a deep dive into our wastewater pipes in the ground and our main lines. What is our current capacity and how can we handle growth? And how can we grow beyond city limits if that's a decision that we decide to go forward with? So that'll also feed into our rate studies as well. And it's just a really critical planning effort. In conjunction with that, we are doing an urban area wastewater plan, which is really outside of our city limits, looking at how would we serve those areas if we intended to go that route. And then last but certainly not least, we've been working on a sewer lateral project, pilot project, where we are currently replacing approximately 100 private sewer laterals. That work will be completed this fiscal year. However, next fiscal year, we need to do the flow monitoring. Did this work? How did it work? And collect that data. So you'll also see that in the budget. Last but certainly not least, we have a fair bit in our water capital project list. Similar to sewer, as I just mentioned, or wastewater, we have the urban area assessment. How can we serve the broader area? We also always allocate for timber management and making sure that we're managing our watershed in that regard. And then we have $1 million set aside for water master plan identified projects. So taking from that master plan that we just completed and delivering on those capital improvement projects, I'll just run through them very quick. We need to install cathodic protection at our Woodland Reservoir. We have a significant water main project along Ruth, as Dan mentioned earlier, before we actually do the pavement. We need to go in and replace that water main. We are forecasting the purchase of 2 backup generators at the lake plant, as well as the intake for the lake plant. That is essential to ensuring we can provide service during outages, as well as some maintenance efforts at Sand Creek. At that plant, we need to work on our backwash pond. And then last but not least, we're intending to complete the design for a replacement of the Woodland Booster Station. So with that, I would open it up to any questions that you may have. Okay.
Thanks.
Any questions, council?
Okay, and our IT and GIS budget, we have a significant number of projects in there that are really related to the security, stability, and upgrades, and really utility, not in the sense of Amanda's utility, but in terms of use of our system in both IT and GIS. Our projects include equipment upgrades. It's a network refresh and the addition of virtual servers, the onboarding and implementation of a new city website, adding door access control and video for our facilities, starting here at City Hall, but then looking at expanding that out through our infrastructure over the years. And as we've added doors and locks and keys and facilities, we have an unbelievable amount of keys here across all of our city facilities, and knowing who's coming and who is going and contractors, and as we're adding projects. And really with new requirements around security at our facilities that are coming down from Homeland Security, DEQ at our water and our wastewater facilities, CJIS requirements that guide what we do on the police side of things, our security of our own facilities and access to our facilities is something that needs to be significantly improved. Our audit logs and our log management is another access to records, responding to records request, SSL layers and improvements in that area, which will improve our security, multi-factor authentication, significant GIS enhancements. We're in the process right now of moving from a single user for our GIS system into new licensing and an improved enterprise system, which allows our users across the city to actually get their data in there, do uploads in our GIS layers, which makes things like access to building records, access to business licenses much easier, not only for the public, but also for our own team across the city, accessing information across different divisions and service groups. And finally, we've got additional fiber connectivity projects. So looking at getting, for example, our water intake connected by fiber to our water treatment plant, getting our Sand Creek plant connected through fiber. That again gives us visibility across our system. It gives us redundancy when we have power outages, and it improves the efficiency and the real-time response of our staff related to outages and up and down times that we sometimes experience across our systems. And finally, because the chief could not be here tonight, he would love this slide the best of all of them that I've had in the deck, and I threw it in at the end. So as we like to call him here at the city, we call him we call him the ambassador of Sandpoint. Our chief, Corey Kuhn, he took a day off yesterday and today to get some time with his daughter because she had a break from her dance schedule and all of her other busy schedules. And he's, as you may have seen on Facebook and other things, because the chief is good about putting things out there, he is on patrol and actively working with all of his front lines during festivals. So will be out tomorrow night, Friday night, Saturday night, and Sunday night. So he snuck today off and yesterday as well. But in terms of other projects we have in the budget, we have a carryover budget of $215,000 that is a set aside we have with SURA dollars for downtown parking lot improvements. We will be undertaking an economic feasibility review of best uses and plans for our parking lot in conjunction with a parking study that we'll be getting underway here in the next couple of months to begin looking at what vertical parking is going to look like on our parking lot, and how through public-private partnerships and a partnership with SURA, we can accomplish that without property taxpayers having to pay for that. So we believe there is a creative way of doing this and accomplishing a parking structure downtown in a way that will economically benefit our businesses downtown as well. We have Baldy Access Road improvements. We've adopted some changes, council approved some fee changes, and actually a strategic plan for management of our telecommunications site up on Bald Mountain. And we need to do some significant road improvements getting access to that area. So we've included that in our budget. As I mentioned earlier, we have budget for police vehicles, and Corey strongly supports that, as you can see in this picture. We have a rolled over budget for our City Hall customer service remodel, which council approved for this fiscal year and is currently underway, but won't be completed until early November of this fall. We expect we will have staff moved back over to our next door building and our first floor at City Hall. Probably mid-October, we'll start to see that transition occur. And we are currently in design for a remodel of our police department here at the city. Council had a tour of that a couple of years ago as part of a orientation and a strategic planning meeting. And I think you all recognize the needs that we have in police. Not only safety needs, but our design access. It's a situation much in need of overhaul in police. We have HVAC system and plumbing upgrades that we anticipate being a portion of both City Hall, a customer service remodel, as well as the public safety remodel. Those are being funded by a grant, ARPA grant. Our HVAC systems are near failure here at City Hall, and there are new ASHRAE recommendations relative to airflow and filtering air for health and safety, not only of employees working in a facility, but also the public coming in. And our current systems are not able to even come close to meeting those standards. So this is included in the budget primarily as a rollover item. And then as Amanda mentioned earlier, we have the streetlight LED retrofit, which we intend Holly's going to be leading, and we are going to bring to completion in this next fiscal year. Finally, we kind of touched on this a bit throughout the presentation. We have a number of planning efforts that are continuing, carrying forward, some that we will be taking on as new in fiscal year 22, as well as some rate studies. We need to bring our comprehensive plan update to a completion in next fiscal year, and we've budgeted dollars for that. I'll turn it over to Amanda to fill in on this as well, but council will recall that we undertook an update to our comprehensive plan about 18 months ago. The goals, the objectives, the overarching values that are in our comprehensive plan and guide much of the development that's coming through and the decisions related to those development, and land use. Those goals and objectives and those values in our plan we've moved all the way through that first phase of revetting those, revalidating those. And so that work had occurred as the first phase of the comprehensive plan update. Where we are now in terms of moving into a next step, it is really related to updating the land use map and rethinking and reimagining our area of city impact, how large that area is, and working through an agreement with the county related to the ACI. As Amanda mentioned earlier in talking about our utilities, our sewer utilities, and going back to what Linda presented earlier this evening, when you looked at our users and our ratepayers in our sewer utility system, we have about 3,800 ratepayers in our sewer system because we serve sewer only to city residents, only in city limits. Our water utility, however, serves the city of Sandpoint. We are the water service behind the city of Ponderay, the city of Kootenai, as well as surrounding unincorporated areas, either through wholesale service to rural water districts, or in many cases, it's city of Sandpoint, and really not necessarily city of Sandpoint as a governmental fund, but really our business fund, our water utility fund. That business owns commercial service throughout the city of Pend Oreille. In fact, we are the commercial service through that utility in the city of Pend Oreille. And so as we are looking at comprehensive plan updates, that needs to be carefully considered also around, as we're looking at the ACI and we're looking at growth opportunities where we serve utilities, where we can serve utilities. So this will require very careful and close coordination with our new utilities director as well. So getting that person in place and really having the time to think about our ACI relative to utilities will be an important component to finalizing that land use plan, particularly the area city impact for our comprehensive plan. We've been having discussions with the county on that for about the last 12 months, meeting with the county as well as with other cities, having some of those discussions. But in order for us to complete that, we really need to move into the deep dive. So Amanda, if I missed anything on that, or even Mayor, you two have been involved in those monthly discussions. So anything else on comprehensive plan?
Mr. Mayor,
No, I think that's good.
I did have a comment. So I'm looking forward with comprehensive plan update. Hopefully we're moving forward with finding another city planner. I think it's really important that we have somebody that is integrated in our community and can see what's really going on and has to work closely with Amanda. And after hearing what you guys just said, she's got 40 projects already on her plate. She doesn't really need this one there either. I'm sure she's probably heavily overworked. So, I do have some concerns that we don't have, true leadership in that planning area. It does have to be integrated into the utilities and all, but then that puts everything on Amanda's plate. So I'm hoping that we can get that position filled relatively rapidly and have somebody who can really look at it through a planning perspective and let Amanda have her expertise with utilities and project management and things like that. So hopefully we can have that underway. I would hate to have to do that with, contract individuals who aren't really living in our community.
You're correct, Councilman Rule, and that's why we've held off on. It's been a combination both of contract planner as well as summertime it's difficult for community engagement. It's also our busiest time in terms of current planning coming through, projects coming through the door. So as we move into fall and probably winter time, we are looking forward to picking this up. We have had our city planner position advertised. We have upped the game with it because it's very competitive in the planning world right now with growth impacting so many local jurisdictions. Most local jurisdictions are hiring and planning either at their leadership level, their mid-level, somewhere within their planning service group. And so we will have the position reposted next week. We are now working with a government headhunter firm for that position, and they tell us they'll be helping to vet. They will be doing outreach marketing with that. And so we're really hopeful through that process to find the right candidate, not only for our city planner position, but for our utilities director position as well. So both are over with, it's with Prothman. We had several hour meeting with them about that this week, and they feel that we would be we were at the end of the process with offers made to people within the next 16 weeks on both positions. Again, as I mentioned, city parking study, we've carried that forward. We plan on getting a contractor on board on that probably before the end of September. We will be conducting a city equipment and vehicle assessment and audit. We've been looking at our facilities. We've been looking at our outward plans and services to the community And council has asked us to take a look at our equipment and our vehicles and really develop a replacement management plan for those as well. So that's been included in the proposed budget. On the fee side, our impact fees, and now that we have completed most of our master plans that will have capital projects, we are finally in a position to get our impact fee study going again and look at those fees and the project that goes in there. So we anticipate picking that up on this fall again, likely with the same firm that we have already been in discussions about around wastewater rates and that study, water rates and that study. We, again, as Amanda's mentioned, have the urban area transportation master plan included, the urban area water assessment and master plan, and wastewater as well. As mentioned earlier, we have the watershed recreation plan. And finally, we are underway and will be launching a community survey next week and a community workshop next month for our urban forest master plan and a refresh of that. With that, that is our budget workshop presentation for this evening. If council has any questions, all of our leadership team, for the most part, is represented tonight, not the chief. So I'm filling in for him tonight on anything on his front, but any questions for this workshop?
Thank you, Jennifer and staff, for that thorough presentation. We really appreciate it. Council, any questions?
It looks very clear. Thank you.
All right. Is there anyone from the public? Well, I guess we're going to hold off on any public comment for the public hearing, which will be scheduled at the next regular city council meeting on August 18th. So we'll pick up the discussion again there. Any final parting comments from council? All right. And with that, this meeting is adjourned. Thank you, everyone, for participating.
And I just want to make a note